Happy Monday, folks.
Hey.
Welcome to the Dungeon Cooldown. Hey, we've got an amazing foretop here today. We're super excited for this episode. Not only do you have old ho-hum Jared K-Jack and I, you know us.
Ho-hum is right.
It's just us.
Ho-hum is very accurate.
But we're joined by our new friends, by our new friend Naseem Etemad, fresh from Fortune and Fate episode 3, and by Gabe Hicks once again joining us. We're so excited. Happy Monday, loved ones. This is our companion show to the Dungeon Run. Welcome, everybody. Friends, how you doing? Gabe, Naseem, Jared, you doing good? Having good weekends?
Happy Monday?
It is Monday.
It finally feels like spring here.
Nice.
And I'm so glad because it has been like 50 degrees and now it's like a high 68, and I'm like, this is beautiful on a windy day.
The temperature's been all over the place in California. It's
Is that backdrop that you have right now, Gabe? Is that what it was like?
Basically, actually. Like it's that like weird like misty, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm cold in a forest, which means I'm either gonna die or see someone who's going to try to kill me.
It kind of
like,
looks like you're in an X-Files episode, which I'm cool with.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Wait, is that your inspiration for the last episode? You just go outside into the woods and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna use all of this. Were there creepy elves that came up to you?
That does happen. I do go in the woods. I actually take a lot of pictures when I'm out and about for like my own reference, that I'll use that for describing. I'm like, oh, that's a weird looking tree.
That's if you don't follow Gabe on social media, I can attest.
I say some weird stuff.
Well, and a lot of Gabe and axes in the woods. Yes.
Yeah, I did record some stuff.
Axes in the woods. That's going to be Gabe's autobiography title.
That would be great.
Axes in the Woods by Gabe Hicks.
Hold on.
And Naseem, you just got back from being on the road, right? So to let people peek behind the camera a little bit, you had just gotten home when you recorded with us Wednesday night from a run of a play in the Bay Area. Yes.
Yeah. I was up in the Bay for like about 6 weeks and had just gotten back to LA the night before around like 11:30. Made a character in the morning the next day and started to play. But that was good because, I mean, it was such a great time doing that show that I was like not quite ready to let go and be home again. Yeah. So that was the perfect time to jump into a different character and not think about being Naseem yet.
We're here to help your odd transitions by letting you be a Triton bard whenever you want to be.
Thank you. Needed that.
Absolutely. Welcome, by the way, chatters. Osu, thanks for your subscription. And hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Feel free to send us questions or anything while we're here in chat. But yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Cooldown. This is the show for our Patreon peeps. Where we get to dip behind the scenes and talk to these lovely folks. Usually we're just talking about ourselves. It's so much more fun and enlightening to talk about other people and their process. So if you have any questions in chat, there wasn't a lot to go off of on Patreon or Discord. So we will definitely be spying anything that you have. Thank you, Goofus McDorkle.
Goofus McDorkle, thank you.
Anything that you have posted that you want to talk about, especially if it involves one of these two lovely folks. Gabe, so many questions.
Every episode of Fortune and Fate, we just don't know what to expect. And again, letting people know that there is a no-cast secret room on the Discord specifically for Fortune and Fate where Gabe, I'm just imagining at this point it's just Gabe putting up polls about how do you want me to kill them. Not literally.
This time it was like, how do you want them to find the first person who dies in this session? And I let them vote, and the highest vote was Crushed by a House.
Wicked Witch of the East style.
Yeah, I was like,
so question from David Jen Pro in chat. He wants to know, yes, I was going to pimp this out a bunch today, but this Wednesday, Ed Greenwood, whom Gabe, I hear you actually know and have met.
Yeah,
Ed Greenwood, he's a weird dude.
He's a weird
That's
man.
great. He's gonna fit in great. Ron and I are going to be interviewing him on our chat show, Arcane Artistry, which will be on this channel Wednesday night at 6. We'll be talking to him for at least an hour and a half I have a bazillion questions for him. I'm
Send us-
super excited about it.
Send us all of your deep cut Forgotten Realms questions, folks. I
Yeah.
want to. I was just telling Jared I wanted Greenwood to say, "Wow, no one's ever asked me that before." I want.
Ask him how many books he thinks he owns.
Okay, interesting.
I've seen the picture. He's got a picture that he sent us for promo purposes. That's literally just stacks of books behind him. Like you understand where Elminster comes from. It's literally just him.
He lives in Candlekeep. It exists there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You say that as a joke, but
Yeah.
Came from there.
Although I've been reading some of his early books too, and Elminster didn't start out as this. You know what? We'll talk about that on Wednesday. I want to talk about you guys. So
I know. Yeah. Let's stick
yes,
here.
Wednesday, Ed Greenwood. Do not miss it. 6 p.m. This channel. Be here. It's going to be awesome. Gabe.
yes.
I want to hear. I have two questions. We'll start with two parts to this question. The first part is I want to know what your process is as a dungeon master. Do you create a skeleton and then just let the players go wild? Do you have things written out that you want to have happen? Do you script anything? Is it totally improv? What is your process as a dungeon master when you're taking on Fortune and Fate, and when you're taking on shows or anything that you're working on outside of this?
Almost every time, unless there's like a very hard canon to the world, it's 90% improv. I build a skeleton and then I see what the party does. I showed some of the crew like my notes for the last Fortune and Fate episode, but I wrote those up 30 minutes before the show because I was like, you know what? Now I do know what it's going to be about. But besides that, I literally went into like that week, like, you know what? Murder mystery. How do I want that to work? I don't know. And then so I started like coming up with a bunch of like, so I came up with a bunch of hints, a bunch of fake hints, and then like a whole list of names and then random descriptions. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to throw this and then see which ones they care about. And even with, I didn't do it for this one, but there was another murder mystery game that I ran where like, I didn't even know who the culprit was. I decided that I was going to see how they built up the clues and built up the case. And whenever they felt like they had a really solid case, I was going to make it that person. So they felt like the gratification of being right. And then they also did the work for me of figuring out why it was that person.
Sure.
I
Cool.
think
And I like doing that.
I think you've given yourself you've given yourself such an amazing like construct for that too, with this idea of this dungeon that we're exploring, where it's literally like every floor could literally be a different dimension. It reminds me of remember Sliders? Am I totally dating myself? That show from the 90s with Jerry O'Connell. It was literally they were dimension traveling every
Naseem
episode.
is just like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It doesn't hold up. Don't watch it. It's fine. Or it's like X-Files. I mean, X-Files is another thing where it's like every episode you're traveling to a different strange place to like investigate a strange thing. And it gives you that flexibility and that structure around it to basically go like, this episode is going to be something completely different. But yeah, it's super exciting. And kudos for even just like coming up, having the ingenuity to have that sort of like, what if a dungeon is this different, you know, like this varied and crazy and from floor to floor.
Because something that I've discovered is something that's really good for my style and that makes me feel comfortable running a game is talking with the group of what kind of session do we want to have today. Like when I know what mood everyone's in, I'd rather come up with a skeleton that I can turn the skeleton into a clown, or I can turn the skeleton into a giant orc abomination, or I can turn the skeleton into a talking tree. But it exists so that we as a whole can enjoy the kind of table experience we want that day. If someone's having a rough day and I had a murder mystery where like everyone was going to die if you didn't solve it and someone was already having a rough day, that sucks. But if I come into this with like murder mystery, I've at least given myself the practice and tool set mentally to be like, okay, let's see how they feel after that first section, after that second section, and then follow through with it or redirect it and let it be flexibility so that we can have a good time no matter what the time is. And if my idea isn't going to be fun, I want it to be confident enough that I could just throw it out and do something else.
Right, malleable.
Yeah. That's fun.
So Naseem, I just got a question in chat that I think would be fun to send your way. Just Jules wrote, I have a random question. Do you, as players, ever save characters from a one-shot and use them again for one-shots later on? Like if you fall in love with a character that you aren't ready to let them go yet?
Oh yeah, totally. I almost did that for this one because I have like a binder of characters that I've done for one shots or campaigns that never
Are you someone whose characters created a folder of D&D Beyond is like 50 characters long?
Yeah, and I also have like a binder of like
amazing
physical sheets because it took me way too long to transition over to the D&D Beyond space. But I almost did that because I was like, I'm not gonna have time to make a character before I come back. But I managed to do it because I'm always trying to play something new in general. I want to play something I haven't tried before, but so I feel like I'd rob myself of that opportunity if I go back to another character. But if I know it's going to be like another one shot, it's not going to be a campaign where I'll revisit this character again. That's when I'll probably go back and pull out a character I've only played once or twice.
And to talk a little bit more about you to Chad as well. I mean, Naseem is a very talented actress. She works a lot in theater, and she's also been on the Venture Maidens podcast you've been running campaigns for several years there, right? I mean, how long? 5 years?
Yeah, I think we started in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah,
amazing.
So it's been a while.
It's an amazing D&D podcast. It's such a great crew. Celeste Konowich is a fantastic DM, and Naseem is one of many talented players. But yes, yeah.
Thank you. Very kind and true words.
Have you been playing the same character on that podcast the entire time for the same campaign?
For the first campaign, yes. We just started our second campaign back in the summer. I guess it's approaching a year now. But we finished our first campaign. That one took about 5 years, and we all played the same character. That was emotional finishing that campaign.
Believe me,
that was a character I was not ready to let go.
You are among friends. You are among friends. Having just finished our 3-year campaign recently. Yes, that was. You were a monk, right? You were a human monk for 5 years. What?
Yeah.
What level did you get to by the end of that? I'm not all the way caught up on it, but. By the time you were done, I'm just curious.
I can't remember. I think I have the character sheet here somewhere. So
what were you fighting when you got towards the end? And I can probably guess what level you were.
There's a lot of Fae stuff.
Yeah, we were fighting gods actually.
So you were, isn't it?
I mean,
yeah.
Right?
So you were in high teens, maybe.
I think so. I just can't seem to remember where I ended up at some point. But I'll find the character sheet.
Okay.
Sometimes
Gabe, we're gonna go.
No, I was gonna say sometimes with one-shot characters, though, I when I'm unsure about a character and I want to like try it out and go like I don't know if this is a long-term character, if this is just a one-shot character, I'll try them out or then sometimes. I know what's a one-shot character if it's like, oh, this could be a fun game mechanic character, but I don't really, my head is not wrapped around them as who they are or what their arc is. This could just be
an experiment.
Fun. Yes.
Yeah.
18, level 18.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I was gonna say it's got to be high teens if you're going after gods.
When you're a monk, when you're a monk at level 18, aren't you just basically catching everything thrown at you? You can't take any falling damage, like.
Oh yeah, it was very difficult to cause any damage, and I was a giant lady at the end too. So that was a great time.
Amazing. Yeah, I was gonna say low-level monks suck, or their low-level monks die very easily, but high-level monks you start to get into some crazy abilities.
Oh yeah, for like the first 20, 30 episodes, I think I was constantly like on the verge of death.
But you don't really like, you don't main a class, which I don't really either, and I get that. But yeah, I mean, because you played a bard on our show, and you're playing an orc fighter on Venture Maidens right now too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But you just kind of whatever takes you as far as a character is concerned.
Yeah, very much. I just, like I said before, I want to do something I haven't played before, whether it's a combination of like race and class, or a new class or a new race or anything like that. I haven't experimented with, because there's so many expansions and other worlds that have been brought out. So I feel like I always come down to like the basic player's handbook, but now I'm trying to go into the other worlds.
And you got Spelljammer coming out now,
God.
and Dragonlance. Oh yeah. It's gonna get nuts.
And Gabe, you just started a new campaign too, right? What is the name of the channel that it's on? You're playing with Mark Holmes, which is very exciting. Sherlock Holmes.
It is on Joe Fudge's channel, twitch.tv/Joe Fudge.
Amazing.
It is Norse pantheon meets Greek pantheon.
Yeah.
We literally just met the daughter of Thor. Her boyfriend's a scrub, and I beat him in a rap battle, but he's dead now, so it's kind of bittersweet. I didn't do it.
Wait, you beat him in a rap battle to death?
I beat him in a rap battle, and then monsters came out, and one squeezed him in his hand, and I'm like, dang, now I can't brag in your face because you're dead.
Yeah,
but also you're dead, which means Thrud is going to kill everyone here. I gotta go. And that was how the episode ended.
What a start.
Yeah.
You guys just started that, right?
Yep. Yeah. We just had our first episode Friday.
What level are you in that?
We are level 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're already meeting
Offspring gods?
Yeah. It's a mess. It's gonna get way worse. Ares and Thor were supposed to be there, and neither of them decided to come.
I mean, that's probably for the best.
No.
Brutal.
I want to fight somebody.
You want to fight the god of war at level 2? Okay.
Someone treat me like a bug and then won't care about me. And I'm like, remember this bug with a knife in 6 years.
Amazing.
So a Papa Chai, Gabe, I've been wondering, what's the most/worst emotional trauma you've put your players through?
No.
I
have the feeling you set the bar high. ... I love it.
So it was very recently, and like we all talked about this ahead of time, but I sent him to a universe where an alternate version of himself had just died, but his parents weren't aware of that. So he had to tell this alternate universe version's parents that he wasn't their actual child. Their real child was gone.
Dude.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Because it's technically not his parents. It's the parents of the alternate identity.
His parents got possessed by gods. So, and then they were like, they kind of like accepted that's frustration, and at the end he was like, I love you, before he got pulled back to his universe, because like it was basically an alternate experience where his parents had never been possessed by these evil gods.
Wow.
And all they did was show like love and kindness, because that was the life he was supposed to have. And he could have stayed, but he's like, no, your child's gone. You're not my parent. So he had to go back to the universe where his parents were gone and possessed, rather than stay in this one where it would have been the life that he had always had. And it wasn't an illusion. It was literally an alternate universe, but he was like, no, he's dead.
Ooh. That brings up an interesting point. I mean, because I feel like sometimes the worst emotional trauma we go through as players aren't often the ones the DMs even intend for us, or they're like, the DM will set up something having no idea how it will, I mean, that's a very specific, like, this is going to be a hard thing for you to go through. But sometimes these moments happen by accident. And Jared, I'm thinking very clearly about the clam incident with Civ and Uggo, where they were
was totally unplanned. I was just like, let's go get this loot. It sounds awesome. Let's go get some magical stuff. And then we end up killing, just so you guys know, I don't know if you've seen all 115 episodes of it, but there's an episode where Uggo and I was playing a rogue and Uggo's playing this barbarian, and we go and find this clam, and it's got a magical pearl inside, and we end up through the process of trying to get this pearl killing the clan, but it
rolling
ends up
very
being,
low, so you just eventually having to like destroy the clan.
destroy it. Yeah, we end up finding out that the NPC little cute
Who
like
were so
salvage
adorable.
manders, these little like newt creatures that come up to like our knees and are super nice to us, that they actually revere this creature. It's like part of their family, essentially.
Oh, no.
And they also revere creation over destruction, and we've just destroyed this thing. So
It was
So
to
then-
this day one of the most emotional moments we'd had on the show, and it
it was
just
brutal.
it was came
brutal.
out of just a funny Civ and Ugo side quest, and it was just like tears. There was so many
that's
tears.
That's an automatic traumatic experience whenever you even just disappoint a cute character. You're just like, no, I'm so sorry, please love me again.
When you made these adorable little salvage manders, when you make them sad, it was the worst.
Yeah. And they kicked us out.
They kicked
They were
us
like,
out.
you need to leave.
They were like, you should
Oh.
go now. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Yeah. So imagine if you like went into Hobbiton, and Hobbiton had like a cute pig, and the pig was like the mascot of the town. And you're like, you know what? I'm hungry. I could go for some bacon. And you gank that pig and put it on a spit. And then all the little hobbits come up to you crying, and they ask you why you did that. And then they kick you out of Hobbiton. That's what happened. That's how that scenario went.
Oh
We're done.
gosh. And the pig
Yeah.
had a magic pearl. No, it didn't.
Yeah. No, it's just bacon.
Did you at least get the pearl?
Yes.
Did you get some
Yeah.
kind of prize?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it saved our butt several times.
Many
There were numerous
times.
times where Morgan's
Okay.
character, who used it primarily, was like, "I'm out of spell slots. I'm a warlock. What are you gonna do?"
It was
Oh yeah, I have a pearl.
It was a pearl of
Yeah.
power, and I was a warlock, so I got a nice little third spell slot whenever I needed it, which was lovely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Charlotte's Web. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if you killed Wilbur from Charlotte's Web. There you go.
Oh no,
Bacon is magic. I'm gonna cook me some bacon after this. Music Man 77, Jared, would you ever consider a body switching scenario where the players have to use another's skills for a time until it can be reversed? I'm gonna throw that to you, Gabe, since you're the
Body
resident dungeon master.
switching.
Until we start season 2, you're the resident dungeon master.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like especially with the way we have character sheets now, just giving someone else another character sheet to use for that session.
Mhm.
Because like if you know how the game plays, you know how to navigate a character sheet, that is enough to throw them off, but only a little bit. Only they'll have to be like, okay, well, I have to see what I can do. And them not knowing everything that they can do feels really narratively fitting for them not knowing how to utilize this body they were switched into. Like, oh dang, I have like 10 different abilities that I don't know how all of them work. And that's what happens when you body switch. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll do that next episode.
Which
Great.
I mean, yeah, that's I'd want to do that with the right table, and I think we could handle it. But like
Yeah.
when you're like DM for new players who barely can wrap their heads around their own character sheet,
Oh,
like I
yeah.
wouldn't do that to those players. Or even just
Did you
But
just figure out
imagine-
how initiative works? Great. Here's a new character.
Oh my
Imagine
God.
making a character sheet that you know you're not going to keep. And like the question is like, are you going to make a character that's fun? Or are you going to be a jerk?
That's kind of like they're Rivals of Waterdeep does this, and I know other shows do this where they're swapping DMs constantly.
Yep.
And it's sort of like anything you do to me might get done back to you, so be careful.
Yikes.
Yeah. If I were in that situation, I think I would be very kind, probably.
So, Naseem, I have some questions for you as well. I always have questions.
If you can't
So your concept for
Desi.
Desi, you said you created her very quickly. Was there more going on with her backstory than we got to see in this episode? I'm assuming so. Like what was her driving force? What's her motivation? What's her to get very actory? Like what's her motivation to get into adventuring? You're muted.
It for me it usually starts out very simple. I mean, the information provided through like the race and class are really what inform at least the start. She's a Triton. They don't explore the surface very much. She's not familiar with the surface, but so proud of her culture. So she just wants to share it with the world. So that's really her driving force to leave underwater world and go and tell the great tales of her society and spread the gospel, basically. That's the driving force to get her out. And then things kind of happen throughout, you know, my characters in general interactions with other players in the world to determine what continues to drive them.
Right.
And sometimes I have a deeper understanding of what that is. Most of the time I don't, though. I don't really like creating very in-depth backstories because I like the DM to just surprise me, and it kind of keeps my improv muscles going so that I can be like, you know what, this I only kind of know what is the character's drive until the situation, the conflict presents itself. It's like, okay, you know what, she would do this right here and there. The backstory
I kind of
really...
saw her growing as the episode went along. Like you became more fleshed out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That tends to be the way I play.
The idea of a Triton Bard, though, was so interesting. I actually, and your description of her was stunning, honestly, because she literally sounds like a siren, you know, like, and this sea witch who is drawing you in with song or with sound and everything like that. It was a combination that I'd not thought of before that I was like, oh wow, yeah, and very evocative of a lot of things.
She just is charming and wants to charm others and just impress people of her talent and the Triton's talent.
Yeah.
Does she perform any tuna fish monologues? Is what I want to know.
It's a little before the show jokes.
You know what?
Yeah.
If anyone would, she would. She knows that monologue.
Nice.
But I
Awesome.
totally agree with. I mean, the character you prep and the character that you play, depending on the party that you're thrown into, depending on the situation you're thrown into.
Yeah.
If you try, because I've seen so many players go the other way where they're like, I've written 10 pages of backstory and I am going to force it all in here with a crowbar if I have to. And it's like,
or they're playing the super dark, morose, brooding character and everybody else is like these happy, puffy little halflings and gnomes and, you know, cute elves. And, you know, you got that one guy who's like, I'm going to play the Vengeance Paladin. Yeah.
It's like, maybe we shouldn't. Should we be together? I don't know.
Yeah. I do. There's a player like that actually in our Venture Maidens cast, Sage McGinley. They're very good at doing incredible detailed backstories that gives the DM so much to work with. So I've seen it work so well for other people because the role playing that they do is always like so much fun to watch. It's just such an interesting comparison for the way the both of us create our characters and play the characters. But I think it works.
It does, yeah. And I think I tend to be somewhere kind of in the middle where I will prep some things. Jared can speak about it. He's seen my backstories.
You're a backstory guy. There's nothing wrong with that.
But I'm also willing to
be proud about that.
But I'm also willing to throw a lot of it out if it doesn't come to pass. So
True.
I will do a lot of that where I'm like, I'm thinking maybe this, but if we don't get to that, I'm fine with it. You know, it's basically I'm just handing you more hand grenades to throw at me when the campaign starts. It's literally like maybe he screwed this up earlier in his life, so maybe that, or maybe he knows this person, you know, something like that. But if that doesn't play with what you're thinking, you know, don't use it. I hate forcing moments more than anything, honestly, in role play. So if I'll have a bunch of stuff ready, but if we don't get to it, my notebook is full of stuff for James for our last campaign that we just never got to, and I've revealed most of it in like a little side Patreon things, but yeah.
I mean, that's what cast secrets are for, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Full. And Katie did the same thing where she had written entire songs as Lily the Bard that we just never got to, and so she'll just release them that way. Yeah.
So Gabe and Naseem, the way our Patreon works is that there's different tiers, and one of the tiers is like the Dungeon Master tier, so they get stuff that the Dungeon Master has created, like stat blocks and what have you.
Oh, cool.
And then there's the next tier up, which is the cast secret players tier. And so if there's a secret poetry, song, conspiracy theory, like you name it, that gets posted in there. So people get to see more of the what's brewing inside of your mind, or like your character's thoughts and what have you. It just adds another dimension to what we're already creating.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been talking about.
That's wicked.
Gabe,
Desmere,
hit that too. Get that.
Gabe, is there a direct connection between the grave grapes and the candied souls? If you can say.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
And
End of
that's
answer.
your
There's a bunch of weird little connections with all the. There's been a lot of like edible stuff, and people just keep eating it.
I'm noticing that.
And I'm like, great.
The candied souls, I failed a wisdom save, and I think I just started eating them. Correct? Yeah, I think.
You ate them because you chose to. You failed to save. You continued to eat them. Had nothing to do with failing that save.
I only ate one. Jessica was the one who ate like 4.
Yep. And notice Zell left.
Yeah. After she stabbed me.
Yeah. Like, who knows what Zell went to go do after?
Oh no.
After stabbing you and eating those souls.
I don't think we'll
Like,
find out.
It's hilarious. And there's been a
We'll
lot
find
of
out.
like, I've intentionally been like saying something tastes like almond just because I'm trying to mess with y'all.
I know.
Like, I know almond is related to like arsenic, but like it with the fantasy world, something that I intentionally do is like sometimes I like pulling science into worlds of fantasy.
Yeah.
I also like totally throwing the rules out the window.
Hmm.
Like maybe someone just likes the taste of almond, so that's why they added this. There's no good reason for it. But if it makes
almond
people,
extract in your healing
Yeah.
potion.
if it makes people panic, then that's funnier.
Right.
Yeah.
That's more interesting because they'll make those choices and then they're like, oh no, don't do that. And then like throw out something that was gonna be like a 10d8 healing potion. And then I'm like,
I've never.
Yeah, I mean, it also gives like a little definition to it too. If a healing potion just tastes like, I don't know, water or whatever, then that's not as interesting as it having an actual flavor.
And
Totally.
this isn't a request. I want to make that clear. This isn't a request, but I'm not sure I've ever played in a campaign that was like super political where there was a lot of poisoning going on.
oh, I mean, there might have been. You just didn't know.
I mean, maybe. And I just, was just drinking my own stuff the entire time. Watch your
I mean,
drinks, folks.
caffeine is technically poison.
True.
What is caffeine?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I love it.
Yeah.
it's literally what gets me up in the morning and keeps me awake during the day. Yeah, it's my life's blood. Okay. Let's move on. So Naseem, you in Venture Maidens, you got to play a character for 5 years.
Woo.
And that's no joke. And it was a human monk, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So from and based off of your process, you're saying that at the beginning of it, you kind of have like this general idea of who the person is, but then as the character goes along, they develop.
Mhm.
What is a defining moment in your podcast or in your character's story that happened that changed your character, and how did they change? What's one moment that kind of triggered that aha and you were like, this is who this person is?
Well, saw it for Venture Maidens. I do have a little bit more flesh on their bones
Sure.
before jumping in, but she was very happy-go-lucky,
Punching person.
uplifting spirit. Yeah.
No, I love that.
Punching for peace. But
That's
she
a
was
t-shirt
always
right
like,
there.
There you go.
she was always like, without a question, without a second's hesitation, wants to help people. Whoever is suffering, she's gonna help you. And if she fails her insight check, there's no hesitation. She's gonna help you, no matter who you are. And there was a moment where they were underneath this city full of kind of ruffians, the outcasts of society, but it was a big city.
Mhm.
And there was this water elemental being imprisoned to supply water to the city, but she was suffering being imprisoned, and she was calling out to my character to help her and save her, and she did. But in doing so, the water that was being basically contained through her spirit was released and drowned the whole city and killed hundreds of people and displaced and dislocated the rest of the people who managed to get out. But like basically an ocean-sized lake had appeared where there was once like an expansive desert, and then this city, because she released this deity. And so it
wasn't just an elemental, it was a deity, or like a greater form of elemental. Okay.
Well, she eventually like kind of absorbed the deity, and as like kind of a thank you, she granted her a lot of powers, and but my character was really traumatized by that experience and was like, all right, well, maybe I don't just jump to every opportunity if just because someone said help me. But like she couldn't have left that situation any other way. She had to help her.
Wow.
But that was a moment where she really grew and changed after that, and took much more time and thought to determine what the outcome and consequences of her impulses would be.
Right. It's almost like she matured.
Yeah. She spent a lot of time after that just trying to help the displaced people of the town.
Yeah. And not explaining to them that she was the cause. I'm going to help you. I don't know how this happened. It was
crazy.
It's a terrible.
I'm so sorry this happened. What a weird.
I'm going to help you just out of the kindness of my heart. There's no guilt involved in this whatsoever.
There's too many people to explain over and over again.
I mean that's just, tiring to have to repeat yourself like that. Fun. I like that. I was actually thinking the opposite way, like the water elemental goes away and then they don't have a water source anymore, and they were all going to die because they were going to run out of water. Starts, so I was thinking the exact opposite direction, so it's kind of fun that it went that opposite way. Naseem, with a campaign that long, how do you find your role-playing change as the character develop? Oh, I just asked that question. That's literally the question I just asked.
Liquid 27.
Good question. Liquid 27.
Yeah.
So Gabe, you play a lot as well as DM a lot. Would you say you do one more than the other?
It goes back and forth a lot. I think now is actually the only time in years where I DM as much as I play.
Awesome.
So you usually play more than you DM.
Opposite. I usually DM more than I play.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm very for like a year I was very rarely a player, partially because I wanted to play, but it was that thing of like, well, we want to play too, and then like nobody committed to it. I'm like, well, fine, I'll do it myself.
Isn't that the DM's curse?
It really is
the forever DM.
So I started just DMing more and more and more, and then I thankfully found other people who liked running and telling these stories, or like people were like, hey, let's do something, and they would like actually spend the time to culminate it and come together. And then I'm like, yes, finally it's my time, because now I'm a player in 2 games a week, which is like unprecedented.
Yeah. Shakir, right? Shakir.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shakar and
Shakar, sorry.
Mistletoe.
Right.
Mistletoe is the other one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question because I get asked this question all the time. Which do you prefer?
Playing or DMing?
Yeah.
I actually prefer playing lately. I used to prefer DMing because I wanted to tell all these stories, but since I have delved so much more into like the game design stuff and creativity, that scratches the same itch as DMing, except I don't have to be on to do it. I can just write and like put it together and then like put it in a place and then put it out for other people to enjoy. And that scratches the same world building itch that DMing does, but there's a whole lot less of a performance aspect that I needed to keep up with it. When I'm a player, I show up with a couple pages of stuff that I need, and then I can relax and enjoy the ride. I can offer directions, but to be honest, I don't have to know where it's going to go. I don't have to know what that city is going to look like before we get there.
Right.
And I don't have to know what that person sounds like. I don't have to worry about what the consequence of killing that person is until they're dead.
That's so I've never thought about that actually as the writer, as a game writer. Like whenever you're writing, when you write like screenplays or you write plays or anything like that, there's almost always that nervousness of passing it off to somebody else, and then you have to watch someone else do your words, and it's very stressful. It's kind of something you have to get used to. As the game designer, what's it like to watch someone else run your game? Is it stressful for you, or are you good with just like, have fun, I don't care?
I love that stuff.
Great.
Because no one will ever run a game the way I do.
Yeah.
No one will ever play my story the way I do. And like, that's what I want. If I wanted people to just, it's part of why so much of what I design is world building tools rather than adventures. I'd rather give someone the tools to make an adventure. But like, even if I write this adventure, and if I write an adventure, my adventures are like more like choose your own adventure books. Yeah. It's like, all right, here's some suggestions on stuff that's going to happen, but also keep in mind, they're not going to necessarily do any of these. So here's ways to work around it.
Number one issue with most modules or quests that I've noticed is that it really does not take into account players' bizarre choices that they're going to make.
I've never played in a module right. Like I've never played a module as it was written, because that's never how it goes. It's never how it goes.
Unless you do it's impassable forest and mountains on this side and forest on this side, or you go down into a dungeon and it's just walls everywhere. So even then people are like, well, why can't I just leave and go back to the town, and then I can, get the town to join our side, and I'll go into the dungeon and
go
fight
to the weird wizard. Open his house. Now you know what? I don't need magic. No. It says the players speak to the wizard.
That's absolutely
doesn't happen.
I've talked about this on the Discord, but I'm currently so I DM, but I don't DM on stream. I'm a private DM.
Fair.
I'm DMing.
You're a private dancer.
That's
You're a private dancer, Morgan.
Okay. Dance if you want. Dancing for money. That's right. No, but I'm running Dragon of Icespire Peak for my wife and her friends, and it is so far from the module at this point that it's like it doesn't resemble any. There's a dragon still somewhere, but they are literally turning it into fantasy Airbnb whenever they clear out a location, they're like, cool, can we take a week to clean this place up, and let's maybe let people find out how much can we charge for this. It is turned into an Airbnb.
That's hilarious.
I was like, well, there's nothing in the book about this, so yeah, it's there is no way that you can anticipate exactly what people are going to do. That's absolutely true.
Especially in like Fortune and Fate, because we change who we're playing with every session, and the party dynamic is going to be a little bit different depending on what classes are there every session. It's kind of just like if I tried to write it like an adventure, that would be so much more restrictive on like who should or shouldn't play. And that, like, it could literally just be that like there's a day where Morgan's like, oh, you know what, like I need a break, or someone else really wants to play, and then there's no rogue, but the adventure like almost requires a rogue to get through this lock, and I'm like, that's stupid, I don't care.
Right.
It's there's no one that can pick the lock, so I guess you'll have to break it down.
Just Jules has this interesting question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Do you, Naseem and Gabe, I think we can all answer this, do you have a character you absolutely will not play? I mean, anybody?
I know there are character types or stereotypes that
there's some
I personally like to avoid.
Yeah. Agreed.
I have a character I won't play, partially because the last time I played him, I was one character off from a TPK, and I'm sad I didn't get him. But this way he's preserved in the memory. He might be an NPC in future campaigns, like kind of an antagonist. He was a dragon sorcerer who got mocked, so he killed the others for mocking him.
This is a player character that you played?
This was my first D&D character.
Wow.
Yeah, they mocked him because he got scales, so he started a grease fire with the paladin in the house, He froze the barbarian's feet and dropped him in a well. And
Whoa!
the cleric noticed the other two were gone, so the cleric ran, and I never got him.
Gabe!
Man.
And that's the beginning of the
nice
evil
to
dragon
Gabe.
sorcerer.
His name was Cross, so I called him like Cross the Burned, Cross the Scorned.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I'll probably never play him again, but I might like throw him in as an NPC, like as
Sure.
Great. So if we meet anybody named Cross, kill him immediately.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Oh, no.
Please try.
Or at
Please.
the very least, don't mock him.
Hey, no,
Yeah.
no.
Just
That's fine.
compliment him profusely.
Anyone who calls themselves the Scorned, I'm just gonna say, keep your distance.
Yeah. Naseem?
Yeah, I don't really have like a particular character that I have in my repertoire that I avoid at all, but similar things where I don't want to do stereotypes or any like stereotypical character arcs or things like that, but there's also I don't like to play this. I already kind of said this, where I like to play new types of characters over and over again. So like having played a human monk for 5 years, I don't want to play a human or a monk for the foreseeable future. And like the first D&D campaign I ever played, that was like a 2-year-long campaign, also very emotional and fun and beautiful. I'm very attached to humans. They were a human druid, and I haven't played a druid since. So
I also don't play bards
Why not?
Really?
Curious.
because everyone expects me to. I have been so expected to play a bard so much. Like, but Gabe, you're charismatic. You like to sing. You can rhyme. So now it's out of principle. There's gonna have like the only way it's gonna happen is if it's like for a very big charity event or something. But otherwise, I'm just not. And like I'm in the mistletoe campaign. Someone's like, "Oh my God, Gabe was flighting. He was rhyming. Gabe's definitely a bard." And I'm like, "You haven't seen my socials where I say never."
I think that's funny too, because I've realized that about myself too, Naseem, where I've played a lot of humans. I think it's, for me, I actually like playing a character that isn't all that they seem. And there's nothing more like that you're ready in D&D that you're more ready to just sort of brush off than a human.
Right.
and so like I've human warlock who's just completely you wouldn't look twice at him until he started turning into a demon. And it's like I think he's a person who was just largely forgotten. I often use, when I'm creating characters, I'll use the player's handbook, or I'll use the stuff to kind of get an idea, and then I'll want to subvert it, and then I'll want to go like, okay, a tiefling shadow sorcerer could be fun, but also like, what if it was like twisted in this completely weird way that no one would expect, just so that I want to play layers. I want to give myself things to discover about them, but also things that when first glance that they are not what they seem. That's something that I like.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between like a jokey one-shot character and someone that you want to play for a campaign or a long period of time. Yeah, I completely agree. I think my only thing that I don't like to play is I don't get a lot, and it's totally fine if this is your bag and you love doing this. I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of playing the jokey one-shot characters, like I don't know, Butt Fuzz McGee, and I'm a gnome, and not that there's anything wrong with gnomes, but like you play up the joke, and then once you play the joke and you hit the joke, then especially if it's a campaign and you're like 5 years in, you're still Butt Fuzz McGee. Like you've been that now for 5 years. Right. It's not funny anymore.
Right.
and you also have to play out those moments where it's like you finally get to meet the big evil sorcerer or the king and the queen, and they're and they want to know who you are, who these brave adventurers are that have come to defeat them or save them. Yeah.
And Butt Fuzz McGee.
Yeah. Not my bag.
Definitely.
There's a first time person in chat Shelby is a nerd.
What's up,
Hi,
Shelby?
Shelby.
Oh,
I know
hey,
Shelby.
Shelby.
How do you feel about leaving characters with unfinished/unresolved endings?
Unavoidable.
With so many mini campaigns, I worry about leaving stories unfinished.
I actually think that's okay. I don't think every story has to have an end, because if it doesn't end, it means you always have an opportunity to revisit it, which like is kind of bittersweet. But there are plenty of characters that I don't know where they would go or what they would end up doing. But unfinished stories are probably what helped me make ends to other stories. Like there's definitely NPCs that I've made that have been based off of characters that I didn't get to really explore as much as I wanted to, or characters I never got to play, or like worlds they were from. And I think that's the value of it. It's nice to have more that you can work with that might not have had an ending, but like it's like having a favorite book series that it's still being written. Like the story might not have ended yet, but you enjoy it for what it is,
Right?
and you might want an
I
ending.
guarantee you there's a bunch of people out there that you just ripped the band-aid off on that one.
Like you want it to end, it hasn't come to fruition yet, but you're still happy with what you have now.
Well, and to kind of build off what I said earlier, which is like forced moments are so tricky that it's just sort of, I would rather leave it open-ended. Even if it's just walking off into the sunset or something along those lines, where it's like one of the best TV show endings, spoiler alert, is the TV show Angel, the Buffy spinoff, where it literally just ends as a fight is starting. And that's the end of the show. And that's because
reminds me of old school westerns. There are westerns that did that sometimes.
It literally looks like the big final battle is about to start, and they cut to credits. And it was such a cool idea at the time, because the show had actually made it a point that the fight was the point. Continuing the fight, continuing to fight the good fight, and to keep coming, even as the darkness and the shadows keep coming for you, to keep pushing back. And it was such a bold move. And it is, as you might say, an open-ended, unfinished business type of thing, but it can still be really satisfying if it still fits the theme, fits the overall feeling and the tone of what you're going for.
I think what Shelby is I completely agree with both of you. I think what Shelby is getting at on this particular one is, if all you ever get is little 1 shots and 2 shots and maybe like 3 or 4 shots, and you never really get to dive into that big campaign, you don't get to play your human monk for 5 years. You don't get to play Civ Red Thistle or James. And I don't know how, like, the longest campaign, Gabe, that you've ever played in, but I feel like everyone here has at least got to play in something that lasted for, a year or something along those lines, or you at least got to play it more than 10 episodes or 10 sessions. So I think what she's getting at is, that sucks. It sucks, honestly, if you never really get past that surface level thing. And I understand that, and I empathize with that desire to have that long form narrative. And all I can say is, that's the bane of all great D&D groups, is scheduling and getting people together. That's the biggest bane. It's not who's going to run the game or anything like that. It's usually always scheduling and finding the time.
Right.
That was kind of my D&D experience for a couple of years after my first campaign ended, because it was in high school and we were all going to college. So it was like the first 3 years of school that I kept jumping into a 1-shot. Maybe we played a second session and maybe got to a third or fourth, but it never continued into a real campaign, or someone kept rotating in and out. And that was kind of a lame time. I was like, I don't really care. It made me not want to join and participate. I was like, I don't know if I want to keep going on with this campaign. So that can be a really
was
frustrating
Venture Maidens
experience.
your first really long campaign, or did you have something before that?
My first campaign was my first long, because that was 2 years.
Oh, right,
And
right.
yeah, that was the first time I ever played D&D.
That
It
was a
lasted
human
long
druid.
time. Yes, and I had like another kind of maybe half a year to a year long campaign after that stint of one shots or two sessions, things like that, before Venture Maidens eventually became a thing. But that one's definitely the longest I've ever played.
Got it. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's when you're dealing with scheduling conflicts. It's something as a DM where I'm trying in the home games. I'm trying to get better at shorter sessions. That's the other thing too about scheduling. Whereas if you can run a 2-hour game, great. You know,
Yeah.
especially
A 2-hour game with a beginning, middle, and end, like some kind of
geez.
arc or story or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because if it's 2 hours of just shopping, then woof.
I'm running Curse of Strahd for friends right now, and we're all adults. Some of them have kids, some of us have kids. I don't, but some of the people have kids, and so it was like, you know, just trying to get better at, like, when we're not starting the game until 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's like, all right, these need to be 2-hour sessions, because when it gets to midnight, we're all getting very tired. Yeah.
Celeste is a good person to talk to about that, because we've managed to make our episodes only like an hour and a half, because like 10 minutes of it in the beginning and the end are either introduction, recap, and then like a sign off. So we've managed to just bring it down. Also, because sitting down in front of a computer for like 3-4 hours is difficult. So that's someone to talk to.
It's a good point. Yeah, it is a talent. I mean, because it's trying to give a satisfying slice of something in just 90 minutes, 2 hours. It is a talent for sure. Yes, I totally agree. Celeste is terrific.
So Medusa 3691, what's happening is this is the Cooldown. It's the sister show to the Dungeon Run. It's that's our weekly show. Well, right now we're on a brief hiatus until we start season 2, but we've been doing some lovely shows with this gentleman right here, Gabe Hicks, who's running our Fortune and Fate show series as well. This is the show about the show, where we get to deep dive into character, and today we've been having a lot of fun. I've been enjoying this, just talking about D&D in general, and all of our experiences with that, and kind of how we view role playing. Before we sign off, what I'd like to do, and this is another little experiment that I'm trying for our chat show, is I'd love Gabe and Naseem, do you guys have any questions for us? Is there anything that's been rolling around in your head where you're like, wow, I really wonder this thing about the Dungeon Run, or about Morgan or Jared, or, you know, whatever question pops into your guys' head? I just want to throw it. I know we're always the one asking questions and sort of driving the narrative.
Well, I'm just curious about your first season. Like, how long has it been? How long did that last? How long is the break are you taking between your second starting?
Well,
these are great questions.
It was 115 episodes, almost 3 years. And we are gearing up for another one that we are going to be starting in June. So, because we just ended it at the end of March, so we're not taking a super long break. I mean, it was elongated for a lot of reasons. The lore of the show at this point was we were originally only supposed to be 10 episodes on the Caffeine streaming network, and then by episode 5 we knew that we were doing well enough that they were going to let us keep going, and so we did 39 in-person episodes. And then this is one of the weirdest nights of our lives, was episode 39. We stepped off stage for intermission to find out that COVID was shutting the world down. And you can, if you go to the end of episode 39, you'll see Jeff Ganata at the end of our session going, and hopefully we'll be back in a couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see. And the rest is history. So we went remote after that. And we've been remote for a long time. For obvious reasons, but we're working on
hoping to get back in the studio.
Yes,
we're working on that.
And so, but it was, and then Jeff traveled us back in time. He actually took like a major detour, because we're like, well, we're only going to be remote for a little bit, and it was like, well, no, we're not. But so there is. it's
the blind optimism that COVID was only going to last a month or two.
That's correct. And so as the audience will note that we time traveled for 25, 26 episodes, something like that, and then came back to the main storyline. And yeah, it continues to be one of the creative things that I am most proud of in my life. And that's why when we no longer were with caffeine, we all were like immediately, well, we're going to keep this going. So we just picked it up immediately. And this is
can we keep this going? How can we keep this going? Let's try to keep this going.
Right. And that brings us to Twitch and Patreon and these lovely people.
Just to further answer that question, I was not a father when we first started, when we first got cast, and I became a father, and my son will be turning 3 relatively soon. So that's how long we've been doing this.
It's good. We've talked about that too, where it's like, it's not only that it was a 3-year campaign, but which 3 years it was. There was so much life lived in the era from 2019 to 2022.
Look at it. It's like Jeff went through a presidency. Look at Jeff at the top of episode 1, and then look at Jeff at episode 115. It's like Obama. It's like age.
He looks great.
Real age.
I will say, Jeff says I age, but honestly, most people will tell you like they prefer Salt and Pepper Jeff.
Oh yeah, he's got the whole Silver Fox thing going on. But
for
still.
Sure. Yes,
we all did though. Like we all
man.
Just it was a rough period of time there for everyone out there as well.
But that's fun too. I mean, to play that character through all of those things, to play, through 5 years in Naseem, it's just sort of like, it's like theater. It's like where you're bringing yourself to it wherever you are that day, that session, and your person adjusts with you. I mean, it's why acting and role play and D&D are so synonymous for me. It all feels like the same stuff. Yeah.
Gabe, you don't have to give me details, but do you know who your character is for the next campaign?
I do.
Well, I'm co-running with Ron, so I
do.
That's right.
I'm keeping my guy very close to the chest for right now, but I do.
But you do know, Morgan.
I do know.
I'm proud of you.
He's going to be very different. Yes. That's what I will say. But yes.
We have Morgan's character and Jessica's character more or less fleshed out. Right. And what Ron and I are doing, just so everybody out there knows this, we're trying to build the world around the characters as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So when they tell us what they want to play, we go, oh, great. That needs to be a significant place or a significant thing inside of this world.
Right.
So we created the world. It's an island. It's a lost island. But when they say, I want to play blah, we go, great. We need to have that race and that backstory and that town or city or village or whatever on the map. And it needs to be significant.
Yep.
And so we have Morgan's character more or less fleshed out. Jessica's character more or less fleshed out. Katie, we just found out a little while ago. I think she's going to play one of the new races because Ron and I homebrewed 3 new races. Nice. Ursaka, which is bear people, Ramhidi, which is mountain sheep people, and Kanusk, which are dog people.
Someone needs to play one of the mountain sheep people who can then knit sweaters from their own wool.
Yeah, sure. And the Ursaka has 3 subspecies, and the Kanusk have 3 subspecies. So you can be like a polar bear, or a Kodiak bear, or a black bear. Yeah. Or a Saint Bernard or a German Shepherd. Yeah. So incredible. She's going to play one of those new races. I'm not going to say what. And then we found out her class and a little bit of her backstory. So we've been, putting that into world building as much as possible. Which is another reason why we're excited about Ed Greenwood coming on the show on Wednesday, because Ron and I get to pick his beautiful mind when it comes to world building and use that for our own world building that we're doing.
Now, Jared, before we go, I do want to say So, spoiler alert, Mr. Jared Kajak will be making his debut on Fortune and Fate next time.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot. Originally, I was going to be making my character with Gabe on this stream.
Can you give us a little bit of a peek into maybe what you might be playing, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I actually had an idea, and I want to pitch this to you, Gabe. Instead of me, because I have like 6 character concepts, instead of me pitching those ideas to you and then having you tell me, oh, I like this one, do that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to pitch those ideas to our Patreon and then let them pick on a poll who I get to play.
I love it.
So, okay, cool.
Last time someone did this, Jessica ended up playing the Goblin Wild Magic Barbarian, who is the most terrifying character we've ever had in the Dungeon Run. That thing.
Good.
Frick or Crick? I get them mixed up.
It was
Frick.
Yeah, Frick.
Frick was terrifying.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, probably the creepiest character that Jessica's ever played, and that's saying something.
That's saying something. Jessica's played some creepy characters.
Yeah. So if you're on our Patreon, viewers, or if you see this on VOD, I will be posting a poll where I pitch anywhere from 3 to 6 character concepts, and you will get to vote and decide who I'm playing on the 11th.
That's correct.
May 11th. Yeah, that's our next Fortune and Fate.
But we've kept these lovely people long enough. This has been just an amazing conversation. I could keep it going forever.
Thank you so much.
But this has been our lovely Monday Dungeon Cooldown. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Naseem. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, chat. We love you, folks. Yeah, so we'll see you on Wednesday night for our lovely conversation with Ed Greenwood. And then, back for Fortune and Fate episode 4 a week from Wednesday. Have a great week. Everybody take care. And... and with that, humankind, be both.
Be both.
See you later.
Mwah.